One of the things that song talks about, though, is pain in life shapes us for greater things. So whether we're in a highland or whether we're in a struggling period, our pain in our life shapes us for greater things. History's full of stories of those who struggle, and scars form the foundation for remarkable achievement. In most cases, it's the hardships in life that help people become great individuals. I'm not going to run through history, but the first one that comes to mind is how many elections Abraham Lincoln lost before he became the 16th president. And you could start rolling them back. If you think of great people in your mind, and I'll guarantee you there have been struggles, and there have been times of loneliness, and there have been times of hardship in their lives. Pain shapes us for greater things. Genesis chapter 41 is our study today, and I'm going to not just read a section, but I'm going to kind of talk through different sections as we go through this. But the subject today, or the title, is God Has Not Forgotten You. I know there are times in my life that I feel like I'm the last one picked. There are times in my life when I have felt like God has remembered and heard every prayer except mine. Even last week I was having a moment, and I told Lisa, I don't even know if she remembers this, but I had come home from work. It had been a really, really long day. It was a late night at the office, and when I got home, I laid down on the couch. It was a day filled with bad news. And I said to her, sometimes, Lisa, I wonder why there can't be any good news when it comes to Illinois Ministries. It's nothing but setbacks and issues and conflicts and lawsuits, and I'm exhausted. Do any of you women have baby husbands like Lisa does? It's like, I just would like to catch a break. Just once. I'd like to be the one who catches a break. We're all at different places in life, right? But maybe you think, maybe if I could just take you back to PE in school, or maybe some of you are still in PE, and you kept messing up, and you never were ever picked for the team. You were always like one of the last ones picked. Okay, there's 3 people left. You guys just go to whatever team you want to go on. Or maybe you wanted to go to prom, and you had the dress picked out, and you just wanted to go to prom so bad, but nobody asked you. Maybe it was you got the nerve to try out for a school play because everybody told you you'd be great, and then you didn't get a part. You see, there are times in our life that it feels like you never get a break. You work hard, you do the right thing, you're a good, decent person, but there never seems to be a breakthrough. You know what I mean? Can any of you relate to that? You wait and you wait and you wait and you wait and you get shut down. I want to talk to you about Joseph. When Joseph was a boy, his jealous and envious brothers, who were stepbrothers, hated him so much that they threw him in a ditch. They beat him up. You will know the story, some of you, and they stole his colorful coat. And then Judah says, let's not leave him in the pit. And they take him out of the pit and they sell him as a slave. It wasn't the fault of Joseph. through the reading, you might have your own opinions of Joseph. You might think that, maybe he was a little arrogant, or at least was not self-aware, didn't maybe have the best EQ. That's okay, I get that. But it wasn't the fault of Joseph that he was sold into slavery. His brothers hated him primarily because he was his dad's favorite. And several things happened to Joseph along the way. One thing after another, actually, and it moves fairly quickly. After being falsely accused, though, of trying to seduce Potiphar's wife, the guy that he was working for, he was thrown in prison. He was just assumed that it was guilty, and he was not guilty because it was based on a total lie. And Joseph ends up in prison, and the hits just keep on coming while he's in prison. And Genesis chapter 41, verse 1 says this. Now, he's been in prison. When 2 full years had passed. That's prison. He had been in prison for something that he did not do for 2 full years. I mean, that's a little bit more than not being picked for dodgeball, right? That's a pretty heavy thing to bear. 2 years of prison life, he did nothing wrong. And I think most of us would call that unfair. But God calls it testing time. You might say, he was in prison. What test was he going through? Nothing seemed to happen in those 2 years. But in reality, events are occurring. And Joseph is maturing. And Joseph is being strengthened. And he's being perfected. And he's being shaped for greatness. And he learns in prison to encourage himself. And he does not lose trust in God. Everyone that God uses greatly has found the necessity of being alone in his presence, away from the pride of man. See, our alone times, or our times that we feel forgotten, are those times that I feel like Eric never gets a break, poor Eric. Those should be transformative moments in our life, because that's when God is doing his best work. It's not always in the highlands. It's when the test comes. It's when life is unfair. It's when we have to decide, what are we going to do? Are we going to trust God, or are we going to run to the phone and tell people, and we're going to cry foul, or we're going to talk about it and talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. We're going to change jobs, and we're going to change spouses, and we're going to change churches, and we run, refusing to just be in his presence to figure out what God wants to do. But in our world, we sue people, and we write letters against people, and we put things on social media, and we scream as if those things are going to get us a little further. But as I was reading this and working on this message today, I thought, if I could help us, if I could help us think like kingdom people, here's the lesson that I want us to hear. When we feel like we've been forgotten, and when we feel like we've been overlooked, we need to pause. We need to pause. And let the vision of what God is doing become clear. Be still and know that he is God. That our life that we're living, it's really his story, and he invites us to be in his story. Western Christianity has a tendency to think that we live our life and we invite God to be a part of it. So it's our story that God comes into. But it's really his story that we come into. I mean, for those of you who are reading through Genesis or through the Bible with us, you'll see that whose story is it? I mean, Abraham had to think this was about him. Sarah had to think it was about her. I mean, Jacob had to think it was about him. Esau had to think it was about him. Adam had to think about it was him. But it was all God's story. It's all God's story that he invites us to come and be a part of it. To let his plan become clear to us in the quietness of his arms. And whether it's 1 week or whether it's 10 years or whether it's 2 years in prison, he is Emmanuel. He is God with us. And he can be trusted. Noah waited for 120 years before it started to rain. Abraham waited 100 years before the birth of Isaac. Moses didn't become the leader of the Exodus until he was 80 years old. You see, testing times do not mean that God has forgotten you. It means he's shaping you. He's shaping you for significance. Those times that you feel like, oh, why am I always going through the test? Or why am I the one struggling? Those are the moments that God is shaping us. So Joseph's in prison, and Pharaoh has this dream. One of the dreams is about a healthy cow and a sick cow. And he wakes up and he's baffled by this dream, and he calls in all of his advisors, and he said, I need help determining what this dream means. Come tell me what this, and nobody knows how to tell him what the dream means. And his cupbearer, who had been in prison with Joseph way earlier, who had promised to get Joseph out, but then when the cupbearer got out, he forgot about Joseph. And so the cupbearer is the one who tastes the wine before the king drinks the wine to make sure it's not poisoned. How'd you like to be a cupbearer, right? And the cupbearer speaks up and he says, I know a guy. I got a guy who does dreams. I think this guy I met in prison. He's still there. And so Pharaoh, in verse 14 of chapter 41, it says, so Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he was quickly brought from the dungeon. And when he had shaved and changed his clothes, he came before Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream and no one can interpret it. But I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. Joseph replies, oh, I cannot do it, replied Joseph to Pharaoh. But God will give Pharaoh the answers he desires. I mean, talk about humility. I mean, can I just tell you, I mean, if that would have been me, I would have stood there, yeah, tell me what it is. I'll fix it for you. Let me get this right, you know? But Joseph, in a moment that it might have helped him to speak with a little arrogance, it's not there anymore. It was when he was a kid. I mean, just see his humility. I mean, I love this guy. I can't do this, but God will do it through me if you're okay with that. Because Joseph has learned it's not about me. It's about the God in whom I trust. And so Joseph interprets this dream, and he's released from prison, and we never hear one word of resentment from Joseph. It's not there. I looked. There's not one word. There's not one word towards Potiphar or his wife that lied about him. There's not one word about his brothers. Joseph is not mad at God. Not one word No blame, no revenge, no resentment. There was no manipulation, no plotting to get even. It's just him trusting God. Verse 39. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has made all this known to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. He was in prison. Let's just say 3 hours later, he's done this. I'm just assuming it doesn't say 3 hours. He's in prison, and then verse 40, you shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger. He put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in the robes of fine linen, put a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in a chariot as his second in command. And the people shouted before him, make way! And thus he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. You also find that he gets a brand new chariot. He probably got a new Tesla. And he's in charge of everything. Second in command. Gave him a wife, anything he needed, place to stay. So what are the lessons? I mean, is it just a story that's going to make a good musical? Is that the purpose? What are some lessons? Here's two, I think, simple lessons. I'm almost done. Whatever you're going through, trust God and don't panic. I know that's hard. You can count on God to come through for you. You can count on him to come through for you. People will forget you. People will mistreat you. People will disappoint you. But God will always be faithful. You are not forgotten. The second thing I want you to see is when the testing ends, when you're on the other side of the suffering, when you're on the other side of the hurt, when you're on the other side of it, guard your heart. Guard your heart. Joseph somehow learns that a broken and humble heart is not the end, but it's the beginning. God can only trust us and use us truly when we've been broken, bruised, or crushed. I wish it was different. I wish it was. I wish life was different, and when you gave your heart to Jesus, everything just worked out perfectly. But then if that really was the truth, then we wouldn't trust him, would we? God can only truly use us when we've been broken and bruised and crushed. When Joseph comes through the test, he's refined, he's pure, he's humble, and he's ready to be used. And he has become a person of greater stability and profound character. If you want to listen to the next stage of this story, listen to the podcast this week, because I talk about how Joseph, while he is over Egypt, his brothers come who threw him in the pit, and they're slowly reunited. But just watch how that story unfolds. But back to this one. I don't like to see people suffer. I don't like to see people hurting. It troubles me when I see people go through difficulties and testing times. But I sure love stories of triumph. I sure love stories of victory. I sure love watching people remain faithful to God and they get the win, but they've learned that I had to go through the pain to get to the win. To get to the story of victory, you have to go through the battle. Joseph didn't survive suffering by denying it, nor did he escape bitterness by pretending that what was done to him didn't matter. Joseph avoided bitterness because he entrusted the meaning of his pain to God. When I first started in ministry, there was an author who was a pastor. His name was Gordon MacDonald. Gordon MacDonald was one of the most popular speakers on Moody radio. He was one of the most prolific authors. He was before Max Lucado. Gordon MacDonald, he was the one who wrote about living within the margins. And I mean, he has so many great books, but he messed up. And he had a moral failure. And he started a process of being restored. This pastor, this author, and probably arguably he could have been called the pastor of the United States. That's how popular Gordon MacDonald was. But he experienced this very public moral failure. It was in the late 80s. He lost his church. He lost his credibility. He lost his publisher. People were throwing his books away. And for years, Gordon MacDonald was sidelined. Never heard from him. It was like he disappeared. I mean, even back then, I mean, this was before the Al Gore had invented the internet. So, I mean, it was, sorry, that's too old to make that joke. Nobody remembers that. Al Gore was a vice president many years ago. But this was so when you lost contact, you couldn't go and Google what happened to Gordon MacDonald. There was none of that. And so he just was gone for nearly a decade. He lived in what he now calls the back 40, totally out of the spotlight, doing small things, hidden things. He and his wife, they recovered and their marriage was saved and his family stayed together and he was teaching Sunday school at a local church instead of preaching or leading a large church. He had put himself under accountability to several Christian leaders, and he was remaining accountable to these Christian leaders and never once came out and tried to defend himself and explain what had happened. He took his discipline. He refused to blame anybody else, and he never demanded quick restoration. If any of you have followed fallen leaders in the last 20 years, I mean, many of them are back in what they call the pulpit. They're back leading their church and preaching after a 2-month sabbatical in the Caribbean. And rather than railing against those who moved on without him, he committed himself to patient faithfulness. Years later, InterVarsity Christian Fellowship sought him out. Some of the men on that board had been his accountability people, and they asked Gordon MacDonald to come back and lead InterVarsity. And immediately he went back into a broad influence of people. And when people started to interview him and ask how he endured all the years of loss without becoming bitter, this is what MacDonald said, and I have it on the screen. I love this quote. "I learned that obscurity can either make you resentful or it can remake you. God used hidden years to heal what success had concealed." You see, when Gordon MacDonald was on the top of the world, there were things in his life that his success concealed it. His success hid it and nobody saw it, but he knew it was there. And so when he fell morally and he went into this season of rebuilding life and trusting and accountability and discipline in his life, and went from greatness to what some would call not important, that's when God said, okay, Gordon, let's work on this concealed area, because I have something for you. You're not ready yet, but I can take you through this time of waiting, what you call the back 40. I can take you through this time, and we'll work on these concealed issues in your life that you never dealt with. So when it's time, you'll come back. There are some of you today that maybe you feel like you're serving and there's no recognition, or you're working somewhere where you're not appreciated, you're underappreciated. Maybe you feel like you've been sidelined, you've been forgotten. Nobody sees your loneliness. Maybe you're tempted to kind of rehearse grievances and things that have done you, people who have done you wrong, and you want payback, or you want revenge, or you want retribution. And I want you to know all of those things, you guys, I totally get. But I want you to know this. Your prison may be preparation, not punishment. That what you're feeling may not be punishment. As a matter of fact, I'm guessing it's not. I'm guessing that prison, that loneliness, that life doesn't make sense. It's preparing you. It's God wanting to work with you. It's not a time that he's forgotten you. God has not forgotten you. I promise. Even Egypt, the Israelites, they're in Egypt working 400 years. And God finally, what God was waiting on, he was waiting on Moses. He was waiting on Moses till Moses was equipped. And one day, Moses is out working, and God says to Moses, hey, it's time. I've heard the cry. Do you remember? If you're going to read that this week, if you haven't already, in Exodus, I've heard the cries of my people, and I've not forgotten them. 400 years. God hasn't forgotten you. He hasn't forgotten you, and he deeply cares about what you are going through and what you're experiencing. And maybe nobody will ever understand it. But I promise you, if you submit your life to Christ and you guard your heart, he will work something beautiful out of your experience. Let me pray. Father, thank you for your spirit that's in this room today. I know the message is intersecting with a lot of people today. I just feel it in my heart. I pray, Father, that the words that I have given, you would take those words, and that your spirit would really be the one that uses those words, because you know exactly what needs to be said to every person in the room. Nobody knows what each of us are going through. The one thing I know for sure is that you're faithful and that you care. You care so much about what your children are going through. And your love is so great for us. Lord, would you remind us today of your faithfulness. For those that are thinking to themselves that they're going to walk out of here and they're going to try to look at the situation in life differently. Oh God, I need you to break through. And just in a one-on-one moment, help us to see your faithfulness and your love. Help us maybe even to see what you're doing. Give us a glimpse of perhaps what we're walking through this hardship with. Prepare us, God, for whatever you want to do in our lives. We belong to you. We're not inviting you to be a part of our life. You've invited us to be a part of yours. So take us. Here's our heart. Take it and seal it. Seal it for the courts above. In Jesus' name we pray.